to this man. He got some good news for you. Hey, man, now listen. Hey, everybody, gather near. The doctor's in the house, so lend him your ear. The things he can say might even make your day. He might even help your pain go away. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in the house. Welcome, everybody, to Dr. Ron, unfiltered, uncensored, and not apologetic. With an attitude of gratitude, I welcome you to episode 644. And as a little bit of a recap, those of you who follow me know that I am trying to get to the root cause of disease. And the past couple months, I've been talking about people who are seemingly healthy, but then develop cancer, develop heart disease, their cholesterol is normal, develop heart attacks with normal labs, develop cognitive decline without a family history, and seem to be aging rapidly despite disciplined health habits. And I've been trying to explain how these are predictable outcomes of a model that detects cells collapsing. And I did a 3-part docu-series on that, which is on Podbean and on Substack and on YouTube under Dr. Ron, Unfiltered, Uncensored. And I try to explain why people do not die simply of old age, and that diagnosis lags behind pathology by years, if not decades. And early degeneration is bioenergetic, not chronological. So with that in mind, I decided today maybe to take a shot at explaining about the feeling you get when you're exhausted. And I ask, why are so many people tired? Not sleepy, not lazy, not unmotivated, just exhausted. We live in an age of medical technology, advanced imaging, genetic testing, and yet fatigue is one of the most common complaints in modern medicine. People wake up tired. They push through the day. They depend on caffeine and Joe, their morning Joe, and they're told it's stress. You're getting older. Maybe it's your hormones. Maybe you're depressed. But what if that exhaustion is not psychological? What if it's biochemical? What if the real reason and the real issue is that your cells are struggling to produce energy efficiently? So today, let me try and connect 3 things that are almost never explained together: chronic inflammation, mitochondrial function, and the fatigue epidemic. And at the end, we'll ask the honest question: can we actually test this? So let's start at the root. Inflammation is not the enemy. It is protective. It is necessary. It is part of survival. But acute inflammation and chronic inflammation are different biological states, different animals. Acute inflammation, it resolves and goes away. But chronic inflammation simmers. It does not cause a fever. It may not cause pain. It may not even elevate standard labs dramatically. But one thing it does do, it alters metabolism. Low-grade inflammatory signaling different enzymes, you've heard of the cytokine storms and so forth, shifts the body toward glycolysis. That means cells rely more heavily on breaking down glucose instead of efficiently producing ATP through a chemical process called oxidative phosphorylation. And my dear friends, that is where the mitochondria shine. It is where the majority of your ATP is made, in your mitochondria. But under inflammatory conditions, you have a lot of reactive oxygen species. You have mitochondrial membranes that become vulnerable. You have a deficient and changed electron transport. The electron transport actually declines. You're burning fuel, but you're not producing energy. Inflammation is not just heat, it's metabolic inefficiency. And that inefficiency you feel as being tired and fatigued. Your mitochondria either produce energy and ATP or they go to fight inflammation. They cannot do both at the same time. And fatigue is the clinical expression of mitochondrial stress. If your mitochondria are fighting inflammation, they can't provide you energy. And I would say fatigue is the most common symptom in the primary care setting. And from talking to my friends and getting questions from my audience, it's often dismissed. Why? Because your standard laboratory tests are normal, quote unquote normal. Your hemoglobin is normal. Your TSH is normal. Your B12 is normal. So why the heck do I feel so depleted? You need that ATP. It's not driving. It's not giving you the energy. That ATP has to do with contracting your muscles. It has to do with clarity of thinking. It has to do with your immune system. And it has to do with detoxification. So if your mitochondria are not performing, your body has to compensate. So you feel heavy. Exercise feels harder. Recovery is slower. Brain fog appears. And that afternoon crash, that becomes a routine that you look forward to. Now, your mitochondria should shift smoothly between burning fat and burning sugar. But when they're inflamed, they lose that flexibility and they become dependent on sugar. And when the sugar drops, your energy drops. That's not because of weakness in your system, it's because it's bioenergetic from your mitochondria. Let me introduce linoleic acid again and talk about natural versus adulterated. Now, we'll be talking a lot more about this in the next 2 months with Professor Peskin, the world authority on this subject. But here's my take. There's a lot of noise out there about omega-6 fats. Let's be precise. Linoleic acid, known as LA. It's an essential fatty acid. That means your body can't do without it. You cannot live without it. In its natural, unoxidized state. That means found in whole foods like nuts and seeds. It plays normal structural roles in cell membranes. It is essential for the cell membranes. It is not inherently inflammatory. Keep that in mind. The unadulterated, unoxidized linoleic acid is not inflammatory. In fact, in controlled settings, moderate intake can improve lipid profiles and will not generally increase inflammatory markers. Again, unadulterated LA. But modern exposure is quite different. And here's what you have to understand: industrial processing involves high heat extraction, chemical refining, deodorization, and then repeated reheating in restaurants. So what started out as unadulterated, unoxidized becomes adulterated. And since the linoleic acid is unsaturated, it is highly prone to oxidation. And when it is oxidized, then it becomes a different animal altogether. When oxidized, you have the formation of lipid peroxides, aldehydes, and the metabolites of the oxidized linoleic acid, LLA. What can those compounds do? Well, they activate inflammatory signaling. So if you're that's why the misconception that linoleic acid is inflammatory, because no one's making the distinction between the unadulterated, unoxidized, and the oxidized one. So the oxidized, adulterated, which most of us are exposed to every day, increases oxidative stress. And here it is: it damages the mitochondrial membranes, especially one of the membranes that has to do with cardiolipin. It's a critical phospholipid in the inner mitochondrial membrane. And that distinction really matters. So it is not, if I get anything clear today, it is not omega 6 equals inflammation. It is oxidized polyunsaturated fats in a system already burdened by stress and inflammation may amplify mitochondrial insufficiency or an inefficiency. I will dedicate an entire future episode to the full linoleic acid story, but for now, the state of the fat, FAT, matters as much as the fat itself. That is really important. If you get nothing else from today's podcast, you have to distinguish between natural and adulterated LA, which is omega 6 fat. Critical to the mitochondria, critical to you not feeling tired, critical to you fighting off infections, keeping your immune system healthy. Really, really important, ladies and gentlemen. So someone asked me, can we test mitochondrial dysfunction? Well, I'm going to go through this and I'll tell you the truth. In routine clinical practice, absolutely not. There is no simple ATP level blood test, but we can infer metabolic strain. Markers that suggest, and here we go with that word I talked about, in EPATA, inverted pyramidal proliferation of theoretical assumptions, suggest, this doesn't say it proves anything, but markers suggest chronic inflammation include high sensitivity C-reactive protein, your fasting insulin, your triglyceride to HDL ratio, and elevated resting lactate. Also, your oxygen maximal toleration, exercise tolerance, metabolic flexibility testing, organic acid. That's another craze now. Everybody's talking about getting organic acid panels. Well, they can show patterns in the Krebs cycle intermediate someplace around the LA, but they don't really give you direct evidence. There is no single test that I can find that gives you a clean mitochondrial diagnosis. The diagnosis is made by the clinical pattern. And the real question is not, how do I measure ATP? It is, What is driving the inflammation? Because chronic inflammation and mitochondrial inefficiency are deeply intertwined. So there is no direct test for your mitochondria. It's all based on the clinical evaluation, not the normal test. The normal test could all be normal. And your doctor will probably tell you it's just your age, you're getting old, and you have to exercise more, and here you want to snooze in the afternoon. If you have inflammation, if you are inflamed, you are stressed metabolically. And metabolically, your metabolism at the cellular level is what really counts. If you are metabolically stressed long enough, you're going to have fatigue. And fatigue is not always psychological, it is quite often bioenergetic. So, if lower inflammation, restore metabolic flexibility, protect your mitochondrial membranes that have that cardiolipin on the inner layer, the two membrane layer of the mitochondria. Be cautious about industrial, processed, oxidized fats. Be cautious about industrial, processed, oxidized fats. Okay? Be careful of seed oils in products that have been heated and reheated. Products like canola oil, soybean oil, seed bean oils that are adulterated. Be careful of that. As I said, I'll devote a whole podcast to this subject because it's so incredibly important to keep your arteries flexible, to keep your bones flexible. You don't want bones like a piece of chalk that fracture when it hits the ground. You want your bones to be a little flexible. You probably haven't heard that too much. I got that from Professor Peskin. And is there a way around it? Well, there is a way. But I will do more research on that and have Professor Peskin explain that what you have to take as a supplement. It is a supplement. So I want to talk to you probably the next time about linoleic acid as an essential nutrient, not an oxidative time bomb. But remember the difference between natural and adulterated. Really important. I'm debating. Well, I am stumbling here because I'm debating whether to tell you about a product that really is important in my family, and I guess I should tell you about it now. And it is one of Peskin's inventions. It's called Easy Trek, Trek, Easy Trek. You can find more information about that on his website, brianpeskin.com. And we'll talk, as I say, talk more about linoleic acid. It has been so demonized, even by physicians. They do not make the distinction. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Ron. I'm trying to make a very complicated subject understanding to you, and know that this is what's going to keep you healthy. If your cells stay stressed chronically, you will get a disease. It might be called atherosclerosis, diabetes, whatever. It's going to be a disease, but you have time, years or decades before, to keep those mitochondria and cells clean, keep away the oxidized fatty acids, the oxidized fish oils that have never been shown to do anything, but people take them all the time, and they have 600 times more fatty acids than you need, and no wonder they don't help anybody. No wonder people get atrial fibrillation and bleeding problems, etc., with fish oils. So our bodies are the best pharmacy around. So we just have to support them with parent essential oils. Just support them with the parents. Let your body make what it needs. So this is Dr. Ron, host of Dr. Ron Unfiltered, Uncensored. I do my podcast here on Podbean, and that's docronradio.podbean.com. I have a Substack page where I post these podcasts plus some writings that I do, and that is docronradio.substack.com. Free subscription to that, by the way. It will not cost you anything, even though it hints at it. I'm not charging anything for that subscription to Substack. And thanks the Lord that this podcast is heard almost any place you listen to podcasts. So have a great day. We'll have Freddie take us home, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.
Hey everybody, Dr. Ron's finished for today. I hope you got some good wisdom for what the man had to say. If it's all about good health, he's the man you got to see. He has a lot more answers for you. So tune in next week when the doctor is in the house. Or when the doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house.